Hey, everybody. Welcome to the e-commerce documentation podcast. We're here with a very special guest. I'd like to introduce Aaron Schwartz of Loop. Aaron, thanks for jumping on the pod, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Preston. Appreciate you having me.
Of course. So let's talk about e-commerce returns. This is a huge topic. There's been a bunch of articles and major news networks out there of the dirty business of returns. And I just Googled it because I have no idea what it is. But they're saying like the average e-commerce return rate is like 20 to 30%. I think most people would be shocked by that, right? I mean, 20% is 1 in 5.
Yeah, it's pretty considerable. It always depends on what vertical you're talking about. So like you're buying electronics, you buy a camera online, you've probably done your research. It's a really considered purchase. You're not like exchanging it's going to be a lower return rate. You buy a pair of shoes from a brand you've never tried before, or a hoodie or a swimsuit, or like intimates, right? Like a bra, like the odds are you're not going to nail the product on the first try. And so even if you like love the product, the fact that like you need to love the product and the material and it's got to fit right and you've got to love the color is like, it's just hard. And so you got to solve that if you're a brand.
Yeah, it's a huge challenge, right? Because I guess a lot of the talk out there is, on ads on Facebook and TikTok and getting the sale. But what most people are neglecting or don't talk about is, okay, post-sale follow-up, right? Mm-hmm. What are those tracks of emails, and the customer experience is really what it comes down to. And returns. Do you have the customer support team who can reach out to these people when these types of things come up of, I've got the wrong size, I need to make an exchange, or I need something else? What are you seeing? What should brands be doing?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are kind of two different threads to pull on, and maybe I'll start and then you double click wherever you want to. I think the first piece is like, what is day one if you're a brand? Like I used to run a brand. So my background, 2010, I started an e-commerce brand. I think we became a Shopify storefront in 2014, early 2014. And then in 2017, I started a company called Passport that does international shipping. So like I switched from being the brand side to more like let's say the commerce tech side, right? And obviously at Loop now. I think day one, and thinking back to when I was a merchant, is like I actually wanted all the returns to be manual because I wanted to learn why the customers were unhappy. I wanted to have an email exchange with them. I actually wanted to create like strategic friction. I've heard a merchant say that recently and I kind of love it, which was like, I will give you a refund. I'll like send you the money immediately, but I then want to have a discussion. Like I need to make my product better. So like, I think day one, be close to your customers, learn. Day two, as you're growing your business, like you need to start automating, and you need to do it for two reasons. One is it's like, you want to create a delightful shopper experience, right? You want them to be able to like start the return at 2 a.m. on their phone without thinking about it. You also are going to have so much that like you can't process the information by yourself, even if you manually do it. So like, you want a platform, Loop, anybody, like it shouldn't really matter at this point. I think like this is table stakes where you get like really good return reasons. Why are you making this return? Oh, it's too big, it's too small, whatever. So you can actually start like collecting data and learning that. So I think like there's the customer experience piece that you need to nail. Then I think there's a strategic piece of going into exchanges, right? Which is like where we shine. But again, like plenty of good platforms, like forget Loop for a minute. Just think about the problem that you want to solve. Is you've paid $50 to Instagram. I was going to say Instacart. Maybe you paid $50 to Instacart also. You paid $50 to Instagram to acquire Preston as a shopper. He's returning the product. It does not mean he hates you. It means he doesn't like that product in that size and that color and that material. You should be doing everything in your power to get him into a different product. Ideally, it's simple. It's like a medium instead of a large, or a blue instead of a green. But it might be he's returning a hoodie, sell him a pair of $10 socks, but keep Preston as a customer. And the way I think about this is like, every D2C brand I know looks at like CAC, right? What's your like cost of acquisition, right?
Right.
Of an individual consumer per purchase. I think about net conversion rate. So if you pay a lot of money to acquire customers and then they all return, that was not money well spent. But if you start doing the math on like your orders minus your returns, plus your saved sales, plus like the exchanges or the upsells, you get I think a much better number, a much better understanding of your business.
I love that. So, and I know you don't want to keep this like loop, right? And promote Loop, but like I guess there's a couple questions. Like at what point should Shopify stores or brands look at, hey, look, we probably should start automating this versus it might be better at a certain point to keep it manual. And you're right, to get all that feedback and figure out what the issues are.
Yeah, I think, man, I don't know. I would say somewhere in the ballpark of like dozens of returns a month 50 returns a month for sure. I think you want to start automating because like there's just too much data there for you to actually get the insights. And if you think about like flip that and realize that you're putting strategic friction in place to learn from your customers, right? And to get good feedback, which is beautiful, especially when you're a founder, you're like starting the brand or you're coming as a new marketer or whatever it is, right? Like you want to get that feedback. Think about yourself now as a shopper, which is you just want to return a product. You didn't like it, or you just want to do an exchange, and somebody's emailing you and asking you for a phone call, and you're just like, please leave me alone. I just want my money back. And so if you start doing that too much, you as a shopper would never go back to a brand, even if they hit you with like the best Instagram ad for the next product. You just like, it was a pain in the butt last time. I'm not shopping there again. And so like making it a delightful experience actually has a meaningful impact on like the chance of a repeat purchase, the chance of somebody coming back, even if they didn't keep the first item. So I'd say like you start getting to 50 returns a month or more. I think it'd be silly not to do that. Again, higher priced item, you're selling like something that's $5,000, sure, great friction. But I think for the vast majority of, let's say, like modern D2C brands, footwear, apparel, intimates, swimwear, cosmetics, candles, like I think you got to do some level of automation. It's just like it's table stakes for a shopper.
Right, right. So what are some of the biggest return reasons that you've seen, and how can brands like get ahead of that? Is there things that you can put on like a product detail page to kind of help, reduce the return rate? Like what are the big reasons? Like you kind of mentioned there, didn't like it, wrong size.
Yeah.
Like how do brands kind of mitigate that before the sale?
Yeah, I mean, I think the PDP is the thing. So I think first of all, I think there are two things that increase your conversion rate, and ideally the right conversion rate. First of all, is like create a generous return policy. Again, put yourself in the shoes of a shopper, and you can buy a product from website A or a product from website B, and website A charges a $10 restocking fee, and website B doesn't charge one. You're more likely to buy from website B. Now, there's like costs to doing free returns, and there's costs to not doing restocking, but like in general, the more generous your policy is, the higher likelihood somebody will even try you in the first place, right? Like, so you're lowering your return rate, but you're also lowering your order rate when you have a, let's say, more punitive return process.
So like no hassle returns or a 30-day return policy, or just something like that. Like, hey, we're not going to stiff you.
There's not,
right.
Yeah, like Preston, there's not a right answer. Like it depends on it's annoying, right? It always depends, but like it depends. Just like be crystal clear with what your policy is, so your shoppers know what they're getting into. In terms of like return reasons or like ways to lower it, I think the next piece is like primarily on the PDP. So you show really good product photography. You have some level of fit or like guide, like, hey, runs small, runs whatever. We just did a partnership with Bold Metrics, which we're rolling out. Like there are like a lot of fit companies that will give you even much better data, right, than the generic size guide. But again, walk before you run type of thing. Like start with a size guide, like have something, make sure the product imagery shows the true color, experiment, like make sure that you're looking on your laptop and your phone, and yeah, you get it.
So what do you think is going to happen in Q4 here with all this inventory that's out there and the returns? Are we going to see returns spike just because shoppers are going to buy things that they might not necessarily need, and because the economy is a little tighter?
Yeah, I think
what do you think is going to happen?
Q4 always has increased orders and increased return rates, and the increased return rate is tied a lot to, it's like you're buying something for a friend or for a partner, right? Or for an employee, whatever it is, right? And so you have to now guess about a brand and like what size is that person or what color they like. And so like your return rate is definitionally going to go up, assuming you have any sort of business that has gifting tied to it. So I would like be aware of that. In terms of what I think is going to happen, last year there was no inventory. And like if I was advising a brand, I'd be like, don't discount. You don't need to discount. Just sell through your inventory slowly at full price. Like there's no need. Right. I think this time there's going to be crazy discounting. We did a roundtable a couple of weeks ago with like Cotopaxi, Fair Harbor, talking about like, because they're both very like sustainability oriented and like community oriented brands, and like how not to just discount during holiday, right? But like if you're building a product with a purpose, and like people are willing to pay a higher price. I think the less you can discount generally, obviously, the better. You don't want to be training your customers. But man, there's like a glut of inventory. And at the same time, like there's inflation and people are worried about their jobs and the economy. So like you're more likely to return a product that you're like on the edge of if you really want that $50 back. And so I think brands are in for rude awakening during this holiday season.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's great. And I guess what are you seeing as far as brands like, if you've got a $20 product versus a $5,000 product, how should the strategies on returns kind of differ based on that?
It's a good question. I think so. You can think about it from the shopper experience, like more white glove service for that $5,000 product. You probably want like FedEx overnight signature guarantee, like type of thing, right?
Right.
You care more about the inventory. Probably the cost of those goods are also probably high. It's probably not like a $1 cost of good $5,000 sale price item.
Right.
So you treat it with kid gloves on the way out. You should do the same on the way back. Make it as easy as possible for your shopper. I think when you start getting down to like lower price items, ideally what you do is if it is something that is low cost and you can't restock it, is you actually tell the customer just to keep it. Now you need to be careful about like creating incentives for fraud or people who are just ordering knowing that they'll get their refund and get to keep the item. So like you want a tool that will say like, hey, that like Preston's trustworthy, Aaron's not type of things, like offer Preston to keep the item and right, like not Aaron type of thing. Um, but yeah, like, if you're looking at your P&L, how did I think about this? 6 months ago, right? So beginning of 2022, it was like free money and people were growing and every D2C brand was growing quickly. Now they're all like, if they're growing at 20%, not 100%, right?
Hmm.
And so brands are thinking more about like sustainable growth. How do you hit profitability? And so if you are just like, well, I need to ship this item back and the item costs you $2 to make and you won't be able to resell it and the shipping label is $6, don't waste the extra $6. Just do what you can to be quote unquote generous. Tell the customer to keep it, donate it, regift it. And so I think the smartest brands are like starting to dive in a little bit. At the higher end, I think the answer is probably like you do whatever you can to get the item back as quickly as possible because like
Right. Right.
you don't want that inventory sitting out there.
Yeah, you brought up a great point there. I mean, they're all great points, but the big one I want to drill in on is like, okay, let's say you're selling something that's like under $100, right?
Mm.
And somebody wants to return. Well, you want to get that item back, right? So let's say the label is like $5 to $10. You're in a quandary because if somebody actually runs the numbers, somebody in the business might go, no, they have to return. We got to get the
Yeah,
goods back and
that's right.
receive it. But then if somebody runs the numbers and goes, oh my gosh, like do we bill the customer for this? And then I bought something from you for $100. You're charging me $10 to
Yeah,
return it when that wasn't clear. Now I'm mad. Now I'm going to leave you a 1-star review.
yeah,
Now your reputation's going
yeah,
down because you're worried about the returns. How should brands look at this? I mean,
yeah,
it's quite a problem, right?
yeah. I mean, I think again, like kind of two sides of this. The first one is make you said like I wasn't expecting a fee. The fee should be explicit. Hey, $10 return. Don't say free returns. Don't imply free returns. Like hit customers over the head with the policy so that there aren't surprises. Because at least when somebody walks in, eyes wide open, they don't give you a 1-star review. They give you a 3-star review, right? They're like, didn't love the
Right.
product, but it was a fair company. Um, the second kind of piece of this and where we're spending a lot more time is thinking about what we're talking about as recovery. So $100 pair of joggers, let's say, right? It costs $50 to manufacture, just for the sake of argument, right? You sell for $100. You ship it back. You really want to get that inventory back in stock, and you want to get it back in stock so you can sell it for $100, right?
Hmm.
Maybe it's slightly damaged, so maybe you want to repair it and put it on a secondary channel like Arrive or Treat or Trove or Recurate, right? Like there are a bunch of secondary sites right now.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
Maybe it's like completely damaged and you just need to like write it off, or it's like moderately damaged, so hopefully you can donate. You donate through like Liquid Donate or like right, like there are all sorts of different providers on this. But so we are finding like kind of I don't even want to say the best brands. I think the brands that have the capacity to think about this, right, is like, how do we maximize our recovery rate? How do we sell the item a second time for the most amount of money possible with the lowest cost to get it back into circulation? And like that delta really matters.
Yeah, 100%. So let's talk about Loop for a second.
Huh?
You guys are always launching new features. You're doing some amazing stuff.
Trying to.
Can you tell us, like, can you give us some of the juicy details about what Loop's doing and how you're better than the competition or some of the new features you're launching?
It's a lot of pressure, man. All right. I think, I'm involved with most of our strategic sales. So let's say like kind of Shopify enterprise brands, just for the sake of it. So I definitely bias that way when I think about like the benefits, right? I think if you're an SMB or a mid-market, automation is the thing, right? Like lowering your cost of service, fine. When you start getting more and more strategic, I think I want to say a number, but I want to make sure I can fill it. So let's say 4 things that I think we're differentiated, right? By the way, there are really good providers besides Loop, and I mean this very genuinely. Like everybody's kind of good at something different. So I'll tell you where we focus. I think the first one is revenue retention, right? So we kind of talked about the return turning into an exchange. you've paid $50 for Preston, get him to change into a different product. Even if it's a $1 product, keep him as a customer, because like
Right.
you get the dollars, you also get the shopper. Next 90 days, 365 days, Preston's going to buy again. So like fight to retain that customer. We've got so many products that are geared towards that. I think that was like the company's focus. It was like automation and revenue retention was the focus until I joined, which was like a little bit more than a year ago. So, summer 2021. We still have that at the core of our business. We're just adding a lot more to it, I think. The second place where I think we shine is customization. So like you want to treat your VIP customers probably differently than your first-time shoppers.
Right.
You might want to give a 90-day return window instead of a 30-day. Like we enable that so you can create different experiences for different shoppers, right? So it's more like there's kind of like infinite different routes or like paths that you can offer a shopper. And so like that level of customization really matters. It's not complex to offer the customization, but it's still like, you want to be thoughtful and considerate with how you do that. The third place is logistics, where it's just like we are logistics agnostic. That doesn't mean we don't care, but we are also a very, very big shipper, so we can get discounted rates. And a lot of partners will work with us. We even work with Happy Returns, who's ostensibly a competitor, but they have a really good logistics product. We have a really good software product. So we have like many of our biggest brands like Allbirds or Figs or Princess Polly, who will use us for the software because of everything I just said, and then them for logistics. And we're working on a partnership with Pickup at Home, and we do, anything internationally, like you name it. It's like we are so big at this point that like all the logistics companies want to work with us, so we can enable like our brands to do that. And then the fourth piece, I think, is like, when I think about startups and like what makes, right, I started 3 companies, one really, really bad one okay one that's still going pretty, pretty well, which is good. I'm not a founder of Loop, so excited to just be an operator and not a founder here. Slightly less stress. I think focus wins in startups. And I think that's where you can like really get closer to your customers and build the most value. And so we are Shopify only. So we've got 1,700 or 1,800 brands at this point, all on Shopify. We spun out of we were basically like the first 3 customers were Chubbies and Code Epoxy and Allbirds, and all 3 of them are still customers like 5-7 years later, whatever it is.
Beautiful.
And we're just like growing very quickly. And so I think like the Shopify focus means we're kind of in the nooks and crannies of Shopify. We're also just like having more integrations, and we make it easier for your finance team, your CX team, or your operations team. I think I nailed 4. I'm glad I started with 4 because I was like,
that was good. No, you did great.
Thank you.
Is Shopify invested in Loop?
They are. We've raised a couple rounds of funding. We raised our Series B last July, and Shopify is an investor. So it's pretty cool.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah.
And how big is Loop? I don't know if you can say or not. It'd be cool. I mean, you've got a multitude of customers. You said that earlier, but so, revenue-wise?
Yeah, I don't know the exact number. I also don't know what we share, what we don't, but north of 20 million in annual revenue. And 170, 180 people. Kind of depends on maybe what day this airs, but like we're still hiring. I think we've been very fortunate. Like a lot of our peers, like went through a really hard time as like D2C brands have struggled in the last 6 months, and we've been able to stay afloat. And so like we didn't go through layoffs or anything. We just kind of slowed down our hiring, and pretty fortunate in that regard. So.
Yeah, it's super tough right now in the environment, and these brands who have scaled up and been hiring like crazy, especially in tech, and now the massive layoffs. It's really tough out there. So that I feel for those people.
Yeah.
What do you think returns and exchanges is going in e-commerce? I mean, it's going to continue to evolve, right? With probably pickups, maybe some other logistics carriers in the future, right? That as e-com kind of takes over more and gains more market share. What do you see happening?
I think there's going to continue to be a flight to quality and flight to ease and simplicity. So if everybody says they want an Amazon level experience, like we're a provider who enables the non-Amazon, right? Like the Shopify brands to get that level of experience, but the bar is continually raised. So like you want same day pickup, but you want same day pickup at your house and not an 8-hour window. You want a 4-hour window. No, you want a 2-hour window. No, you actually want the exchange to happen when you're sending in the return. Like I want the small for large, like some handoff. So I think there's going to be continued like ease of logistics, right? So I think that's one piece. I think where the industry is or should be going, or where we're trying to lead, is actually kind of put ourselves out of business. So how do we use the data that we have going back to one of your questions earlier, to lower the return rate. So if it was 25%, how do we get down to 24.5% and then 24%, right? And what that means is like we're no longer a returns provider, we're like a returns prevention tool. And like we can do that because we have the data around why Preston return was too small. And like, oh, we see a lot of data that this product runs a little tight, therefore Mr. or Mrs. Merchandiser, like change your product or change how it's displayed on the site type of thing. So I think there's going to be a very big push to like taking all that data and helping brands lower their return rate, which is maybe counterintuitive, but I think the right way to run the business.
So Loop doesn't make money if your returns go up, is what you're saying?
It's funny. I think right now we do make money if your returns go up, but that's like basically just tied to like, it's like API calls or something is a different way to think about it. But I think we could make a lot more money if we were to make your returns disappear, but your conversion rate go up, right? Like people would, whatever we're making, we would make so much more because you don't have to deal with the logistics and the operations headache and the customer being disappointed. Like how much more valuable is a company that helps you get the right product in the right customer's hands every time as quickly as possible? Like that is kind of the holy grail. So I'd rather we move in that direction.
No, I love that.
Yeah.
Aaron, thanks so much for doing this. Where can people learn more about you and Loop?
Loop is loopreturns.com, LOOP returns. So pretty exciting. .com. I have no idea what my Twitter handle is. It's either Aaron Schwartz, CLE, or it's Aaron Schwartz 35 because I have one on Twitter and one on Instagram, and I'm just like old and bad at social media at this point.
It's okay. I'll link it down below. They'll find you.
Yeah, we'll figure it out later. I like to joke that LinkedIn is my favorite social network, which is why I probably don't have that many friends. So.
No, it's fine. Thanks, Aaron. I really appreciate you coming on, man.
This was fun. Thanks for your time, Preston.
Of course.